So, irregular income, let's talk about this on today's episode. Have you ever had a really good income month? Perhaps you're self employed, you're a consultant, you're a coach, maybe even a self employed financial advisor. And you have those periods where money hits your bank account, and then for a moment, there's this relief. And then the brain starts scanning ahead. And it starts asking questions like, what's coming in next month? How long is this going to need to last me? How much of this needs to go to tax? Can I put some of it into savings? Can I finally pay off the thing I've been putting off? And then actually, before you know it, the good month doesn't actually feel good anymore at all. And you simply just stop enjoying the fact that money has even arrived in the first place. And if your income changes from month to month, you probably know this feeling very, very well. I have been through multiple periods in my self-employed career where this has happened to me. And you can even have enough money in the bank and still go through these patterns and these feelings. You can have one of your best months and still feel fear or panic that I might not know when this is going to come again. And so, having spent many, many years working around money, I see this so often, particularly with irregular income. And so in this episode today, I wanted to show you, why does that anxiety, that fear, that panic show up? Why does it stay around, even if you've had a good month? And I'm going to give you 3 specific numbers that can really help you to create some steadiness, emotional steadiness. I'm going to talk about 2 specific types of accounts that could just take a little bit of that pressure off. And I'm going to leave you with one really simple but beautiful practice for those moments when fear, panic, stress arise. So let's begin with the part that I think most of us probably underestimate, is that when you're paid an irregular salary, or when you have no guarantee exactly when revenue is coming in, then your monthly rhythm is entirely different. You might know roughly what's coming in. You might have invoices that have been sent out. You might have had clients signing contracts, deals that have come in. So you know a little bit about what's coming in, and you might know when the next payment is coming. But the thing with irregular income is it doesn't give you that sense of closure. So instead of checking the money question once or twice, have I got enough money in my account? Your brain keeps running it in the background. Like, what's coming in? What's still outstanding? What do I need to hold back? How long is this going to last? And this constant thinking in our brains around money, planning, and even worrying about the future. I just want you to take a moment when you think about that at a time when you have been in that place. Think about where that lands for you. Like, think about, what is your reaction? Is it an emotional state? Is it fear? What is it that comes up for you? And is there anywhere in particular in your body that you experience that? I know for me, like, I get this real tightness, like almost dryness in the base of my throat. And this is the really interesting pattern around this, is you might know that actually, I know this month's going to be fine. I know this quarter's going to be fine. I know this year's going to be fine. But there's still this question sitting underneath it. What happens next? And one good month in business doesn't answer that question. So the money arrives in your account, and part of you goes, okay, cool. But what about next month? And so for a lot of people with variable income, earning more money doesn't actually automatically bring this sense of relief that we may have expected. And so our physical reaction is still the same. And a lot of us assume that once we earn more, that will stop. And I think that's where what's really interesting is to consider that having a certain amount of money in your bank account can feel completely fine on one day and completely terrifying the next, even if no money has even entered or left the accounts. And that might be because you've had a bad night's sleep. It might be that you've had an argument with somebody. It might be that something else is going on in your life that is feeling really uncertain. It might be because your physical capacity is just lower that day. I know recently, for example, I've been navigating grief. My 101-year-old grandmother, cannot believe it, like she smoked like a chimney and drank like a fish, had the most amazing, resilient life. And because I've been navigating grief, which is loss as a human emotion, all of a sudden my anxiety around money has been higher. And that's not because actually it's been like a difficult few months in business. In fact, the opposite. But it feels harder because I'm depleted, emotionally depleted. And it makes sense when you think about it, doesn't it? You know, if you have unpredictability going on in your life or other things going on in your life that restrict your capacity, then that is going to shift how you deal with money and how you deal with other areas in your life. It's not about judging yourself and noticing that there is uncertainty for all of us right now. It is simply to give yourself some signals or cues or prompts so that rather than relying on like how you happen to feel that day to work out whether you're okay, we can actually just notice that maybe our capacity is being affected, because constantly checking our bank accounts, scanning for those things, planning ahead, trying to forecast, trying to work it out from a logical brain doesn't always work, right? So financial pressure can take up a huge amount of mental capacity. And that is the space that you maybe don't have because of other things going on for you. So the useful question actually becomes here, what would give you something clear to measure against? So before we get practical, I'm just really curious to understand from you, like when money does arrive, what happens for you? What is your first reaction when money arrives? Is it like relief? Do you get a tightening in the chest? Do you go straight to planning? Tell me in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube, or feel free to drop me a message on my Instagram, Catherine Morgan Money. And that's awareness of that cue, that question you can then start to ask yourself, well, what would give me something clear to measure it against? Like, what is something in my life that has some level of certainty that can bring in some more relief in those times where I maybe am panicking, right? So think about that one. And let's just give your brain something that might be quite useful here as well. So a lot of traditional budgeting advice assumes that you know roughly what's coming in every month. And when your income moves around or is inconsistent, it can leave you feeling as though you're failing, that you're no good at budgeting or managing money. And so what I want you to consider instead is, rather than starting from a very traditional monthly budget, I want you to work out a couple of key reference points. This is really helpful as an alternative to budgeting. So the first one is your minimum number. This is what it genuinely costs you to keep your life and your work running for 1 month, covering your mortgage, your rents, your housing expenses, your food, expenses for the kids, petrol in the car, minimum debt repayments, essential business costs. The things that would have to be paid every single month. And to work this out, I would just do a fairly simple exercise where you just do this over a 3-month period. Unless you have expenses that are wildly different each month, I would take a kind of average 3-month period of time. Probably wouldn't do it over the summer when maybe your expenses are higher because you're having time off or you're having holiday expenses. But take an average 3-month period and just go through each month and grab a highlighter pen or just total them up and work out what that number is. Okay. And then once you've done that, then I would go through that process. The same on your credit cards. If you're using credit cards to pay your bills, for example, I know some people do to like max out their credit card points and things like that, then you also want to make sure you do that across those accounts as well. And then once you've done that, you'll then have 3 different figures. You'll have 3 different months, 3 different figures. And what I would do is take the highest one out of those 3 as the kind of conservative starting point, and then check whether there was anything genuinely unusual or as a one-off in any of those 3 months. Now, that number is not going to be perfect, but it will give you a rough idea of what the minimum amount is per month. Okay. And knowing your minimum, even if it's just a ballpark figure, will give you a little bit of certainty. Okay. It makes it a bit more tangible. And that tangibility, that certainty-ish, even if it's not 100%, is better than having no certainty. Okay, so that's the first number. The second number is your comfort number. And that is your minimum number from the first exercise, plus all the things that make life feel a little bit easier and a little bit more joyful. So it might be the haircut, it might be the gym class, it might be birthday gifts to friends and family, having a meal out. They're not mandatory, although some of those things we probably think are mandatory, but they are things that you could live without, but actually they bring a lot of fulfillment and enjoyment for your life. And that's almost like your middle number. And so with irregular income, you often can swing between 2 feelings at the same time, like I've got enough and I haven't got enough. And so this comfort number is like another figure that you can work towards of having some understanding, or what I call like a financial awareness, as to what that needs to look like. So you have your minimum figure and then you have your comfort figure. And then the third figure is your future number. So this is your comfort number plus what you want to put towards anything that you are wanting to create in the future. And that can be near future or further away future. This might be some goals that you've set yourself. So, a nice holiday you want to go on. It might be your next team member that you're hiring. It might be a piece of jewelry that you have seen that you want to put some money aside for. Whatever wealth building looks like for you, whether it's going into investment accounts or pensions, that doesn't really matter. It's the behavior, the principle behind it that matters more. And if you're self-employed, I would also add an extra little category to that, which would be tax, to make sure that you're putting enough money aside as well that actually doesn't belong to us either. So those are 3 numbers that can be very, very helpful to just have an understanding of what is that number? What does that money number look like? And then you've got 3 really powerful reference points. You've got the minimum, you've got your comfortable level, and then you've got your future level. And then suddenly 1 month, a question about this month's income or this month's sales suddenly becomes easier to answer. Did I cover the minimum? Yes or no? Did I reach my comfort amount? Yes or no? Was there anything left for future me? Yes or no? And you might have exactly the same income next month as you did last month, but the difference is that now you've got somewhere to put the question down. So that's just a little basic formula, if you like, of how to create more consistency, more certainty when you've got irregular patterns. And I would think about the accounts as well that you're holding. So there's 2 accounts that I think take a surprising amount of pressure off if you're in the situation. The first one is one I'm sure you've already heard of, which is your financial security fund, your emergency fund, your buffer fund, whatever you want to call that, which is just a small amount of money that's held separately from your main bank account. That's the important thing. That is for the annoying things, when the car breaks down, the boiler breaks down, the dentist trip, the things that really they're not emergencies, but they are inconvenient life moments. I know for us recently, in the last 12 months, we've had to replace windows. We've had to replace 4 tires on the car. Like, they're annoying things. They don't actually bring a lot of joy, but, well, they could, I guess, if we reframed those spending decisions, but they're just annoyances more than anything. So what happens for a lot of people is that those unexpected costs, they're the ones that cause the most disruption in our nervous system. They're the ones that create the biggest amount of panic. It's like, oh crap, how am I going to pay $8,000 for a new boiler? How am I going to replace 4 tires on my car? They feel like such a huge, unexpected thing that our whole body goes, oh, right, panic, 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 panic. Even if there is money there, because then we start to ask ourselves, well, is there enough money now left in that account? Right. So either way, but certainly if you have no money in accounts, then it can leave us feeling very, very financially stressed. So for that reason, I would make your financial security fund, your emergency fund, as inconveniently accessible as possible. Right? Put it with a different bank, no card attached to it, maybe even no app that's sitting on your mobile phone screen, right? Because it's the same with tax money. When tax money sits in your current account, your brain can start to include that number. And actually that number is not ours to spend. Okay. So it can feel like if it's in our main account and then suddenly we have to pay our tax bill, like suddenly it's disappeared. It's like this sudden exit of money. And that doesn't really keep us in flow. So give it its own space, give it its own savings accounts. As soon as the money comes in, swoop it back out into giving that money a specific purpose, a specific home. And these little separate homes for your money can feel a little bit annoying because you'll get multiple bank statements, or you've got to remember multiple logins. But these separate layers really help to stop a short-term problem becoming a long-term decision. And so that, quieter month you might have in your business or your consultancy doesn't automatically have to become, oh God, I've got to stop my pension. I've got to sell my investments and I've got to borrow money. And so the whole point is to give that short-term uncertainty that is maybe going on somewhere to go. Okay. So those are some of the things that I would suggest. Now, also, in addition to this, we need to make sure that everything we've spoken about is very practical. Okay. But we want to also make sure that you have the capacity, that you are feeling resourced, so that when panic arrives last minute, or it's 11 o'clock at night and you're looking at your banking app thinking my payments are going out tomorrow and I haven't got enough money in the account, you want to make sure that you are feeling regulated, you are feeling safe. Okay. Because there is actually nothing we can do about it if it's the night before your bills are going out and the money's not in your account. There's literally nothing we can do in that very moment. Okay. So we want to make sure that when there are times of uncertainty going on, that you have or do feel at least resource to be resilient, to go, I can cope with this. I can deal with this. I can, get on the phone tomorrow. I can do what needs to happen tomorrow. But right now, we don't want to leave that feeling in your body. That is what causes stress. There's so much research that talks about the implications of financial stress. So we want to make sure that you're well resourced. And this is what I want you to do. Okay. So it takes less than a minute. I want you just to place your left hand onto your chest, physically onto your chest. You can do this with me while you're listening, and give your attention somewhere to go that isn't about money. Anything at all. Right now, I'm looking outside my window. I'm looking at the breeze that is blowing the palm trees in the front yard. Right. So I'm focus on something different, and then just breathe in gently through your nose and let the exhale be a little bit longer than the inhale. Doesn't matter for how many counts, whatever feels good for you. And just do that 2 or 3 times. And you're not trying to force yourself to calm down. You're just creating a little bit of extra space around the feeling that you're experiencing. Then from that place, we can then name the feeling. Okay. Like, this is money fear. I'm feeling anxiety. I'm feeling stressed. I'm feeling panic. And naming it doesn't mean it will disappear, but being aware of what it is can, first of all, dramatically change how we feel because we're recognizing, acknowledging it. And then what it does is it almost creates this gap between this feeling and then knowing what is the decision we need to go and make. Okay. And sometimes that is giving yourself a decent night's sleep to then come to that decision in the morning, or 20 minutes to go and have a walk to then create some headspace to then have the capacity to make that decision. Okay. So give yourself time, space, capacity. If you've got grief going on or something else going on, then we have to be a little bit kind to ourselves and know that decisions are going to take longer. I find it really hard to even decide what I want to have for my breakfast at the moment, having navigated grief recently. So we need to give ourselves space. And then you can sit with a nice question. Once you've regulated, your nervous system's feeling good, you've just taken that moment to pause, breathe, just notice. You can start to ask yourself questions like, what would I choose here if I actually felt safe to think clearly? Notice the question doesn't require you to feel completely safe, because you might not feel completely safe, but it asks you to almost like borrow a perspective of the version of you that does have more space. And then often the answer just will naturally come. And then maybe we can go and have a look at those numbers, the minimum, the comfortable, the future, and we can plan accordingly. And so there's often so much more going on than the number in the actual bank accounts. And irregular income, especially, I think you have to learn that this is normal. It is normal to have these irregular cycles, irregular patterns. It is normal. And if you come from an employed position in the past, this might not be normal for you. And we have to retrain our brains to recognize that this is the new normal way of receiving money. And so when you give yourself those clear reference points, knowing those 3 numbers, having separate places for money with different jobs, and a way to just slow down when those emotions do arrive, then uncertainty can become much easier to hold. So 3 numbers, making sure I'm holding up 3 fingers for those of you watching on video, 3 numbers, 1 practice, 2 accounts. Okay. And then 1 question for that moment for you then to go and make a decision, right? What would I choose here if I felt safe enough to think clearly? Now, I know that listening to this, you might think, yeah, but there are some times where I just really go into panic, and I hear you. And I have recorded a little audio practice for you called Safe to Hold. It's specifically for those moments that money arrives and you notice yourself tightening and then feeling really, really stressed. And this is a completely free resource. It's inside my Money Circle, which is my free community. There's some other resources in there as well. We add resources in every single month. And we also get together live on the 22nd of each month for discussions, deeper discussions around some of these topic areas. So if you want the Safe to Hold audio, comment circle below this video on YouTube, or drop me a message on any of my social handles, or drop me an email if you are on our email list as well, and we can get that over to you. And if working out that first number that I was talking to you about showed up more resistance than you thought it might, then just pay some attention to that. Because next month we're going to be exploring more about underneath the numbers and looking at some of the patterns that shape how we relate to money in the first place. And we're going to be taking that through the lens of different without kind of giving it away, like what's coming, but around different attachment styles with money. So that's coming up. So make sure that you hit the subscribe button on the channel or the follow button on the podcast, and we'll dive deep into some of those subject areas in the next coming weeks. Thank you for listening today. And remember, it's not about the money. See you guys on the show next Monday. Take care.